You can check the city records the same way I did. I moved into this building a little over a month ago, floor 6, but something about the layout never sat right with me. The records show no unit directly beneath mine. 5th floor ends one stack short, like they just stopped halfway through construction. My apartment hangs over nothing but concrete and whatever void they filled it with. No crawl space, no storage, just slab. So explain why a television turns on under my bed every night at 3:03 a.m. Volume low, tinny laughter leaking up through the vents like secondhand smoke. I moved into this building for the quiet. That's the part that makes us feel like a joke with a slow punchline. The brochure called it heritage concrete. That's a phrase you only hear when a landlord wants to charge extra for cracks you're supposed to pretend are charming. My unit 6B sat at the dead end of the hall facing the river. Old radiator, thick windows, a faint mineral smell in the pipes that reminded me of the tap water at my grandfather's. The water pressure was weak. The walls sometimes hummed when someone below flushed. That was all part of its personality. The first week it was just that. Character. Quiet character. Somewhere around the 8th night, I woke up to a sound. Not loud enough to startle, just wrong enough to notice. It rose through the floor, like someone has left a TV on a few rooms away. A brittle rhythm of laughter. 3 beats of a studio audience. One man's voice blurred between them. It lasted 6 seconds and shut off. I lay there, listening to my heart embarrass itself. The quiet after felt bigger than the sound had. I waited for the rest. Footsteps, a door, plumbing, but nothing came. I told myself it was a car outside, somehow with a window cracked, watching a late-night clip. The building didn't agree. At 3:03 a.m. the next night, the same brittle laugh unfurled under the floorboards, exactly the same way, like a line from a script. On night 3, I was ready. I watched the clock crawl from 3:02 to 3 and held my breath. The laugh came. This time, I put my palm to the floor. The concrete was cold, but I felt a tremor through it. A mosquito-sized vibration that buzzed the meat of my hand for the duration of the sound. Something beneath me was producing it. I didn't sleep. Morning made me brave in the way mornings do. I went downstairs to the office with a coffee, an excuse to be awake. "There's no one under me," I said, trying to phrase the absurd as an adult would. But there's noise, TV noise, every night at 3. The manager, a man whose necktie always looked like it was apologizing, clicked around a desktop that still had the factory wallpaper. "No 6th floor tenant but you," he said. "Below you is 5. Below your stack is the stair core. No unit directly under. Could be ventilation echo. Pigeons in the shaft sometimes. They do a coo sounds that sounds electronic. Pigeons that laugh at sitcoms." He smiled, like I'd done a bit. "You'd be amazed at what echoes carry in these old places," he said. "It's probably one of your old neighbors on 5 with a weird placement. We can remind folks of quiet hours. Leave it with me." That night, I put my phone's voice memos app on the floor next to the bed. When the laugh came, the waveform jittered like a seismograph. Listening back with headphones, I caught something I hadn't heard with my ear. Underneath the laugh, a flat hiss like tape. Not the clean hiss of a modern speaker, a sandpapery line that swelled and then diminished, like the stale breath of a VCR. I started tracking it. It was always 3:03 a.m., always 6 to 8 seconds, always the same timbre. By the 7th night, the laugh had a companion, a faint tick. Not a metronome, more like a fingernail tapping glass. 1, 2, 3, pause. 1, 2, 3, pause. It ticked for 30 seconds after each laugh. When I pressed my ear to the floor, the tick centered directly beneath the bed frame. I bought a cheap borescope camera the next day. It came in a zippered case with a tube like a medical instrument. My plan was sloppy and stupid. Exactly the kind you do when a small problem makes you feel helpless. Find the baseboard behind the bed, pry off the quarter round, drill a small hole into whatever void existed under the slab, snake the camera in. I told myself I was drilling into space. There was nothing under me to damage, because there was no under me. The drill hit plaster, then a belly of hollow that sang back through the bit. I widened the hole and fed the camera. The screen showed whiteness that resolved slowly into texture. A wall, close, painted the same off-white texture as my unit. Hairline cracks like desiccated mud. I pushed further, felt the tube skim something that clicked. The screen stuttered, and then found an object. A table leg. My table leg. Same angle, same chipped varnish on the corner where I'd nicked it moving in. I pulled back, heart drumming in my neck, and then aimed the camera downward. The lens passed over a rug, the crushed, dirty twin of mine. In the lower corner, a dark stain in the same shape as the coffee I'd spilled last week. The same spill, only older, as if it had been there a long time and then painted over often. I kept rotating, trying to keep some idea of orientation. The camera fed me images like a flipbook of my apartment. The edge of my couch, drooping more than it should, the lamp with the cracked shade, except the shade here leaned as if it softened by heat. The TV stand with a small gouge from when I dropped the screwdriver. Here, the gouge had swelled and cracked like a scar across the dry wood. Everything was mine. Everything was older, and everything was coated in a patience that made me sweat. Then the camera passed a slice of dark that reflected the lens, a black rectangle, TV screen. For a second, the screen held a ghost of me in a funhouse way. The borescope's little LED hollow flickered, and I saw a movement in the reflection that wasn't mine. Something lying on the couch. Something the size and shape of me. I yanked the camera so hard the tube bent and the image tore into static. I sat on the floor, cord limp, listening to the apartment breathe. At 3:03 a.m., the laugh came again, but now there was another sound. My name. Not spoken from below, spoken in my room, by my own mouth. A breath of a murmur I didn't feel myself make. In the recording, you could hear it. The laugh underfoot, the tape hiss, and over it a whisper, less than a whisper, right into the mic. Elias. I didn't hear it with my ears, but the phone did. I didn't sleep. I lay on the couch with the lights on, the drill on the coffee table like a prop, the borescope coiled like a shed snake. At 5 a.m., I put on shoes and went for a walk. That was more a wobble. The river was a slate of ribbon. I imagined dropping my phone into it with all the recordings, watching the surface swallow the proof like a mouth. Daylight is a disinfectant that never penetrates old buildings. I came back intending to patch the hole. The paste over my curiosity was spackle and primer. The manager was waiting in the hallway at my door. "We've got a complaint," he said, the tone of a man who chooses the least offensive words. "A drilling last night. Quiet hours apply up here too. There's a room under me." I hated how I sounded, immediately urgently convinced. "There's a room." He wiped his forehead with a folded napkin. "Under you is a slab and beams." "Then how do you explain?" I held up the borescope. He sighed. "Mr. Ward, you signed a lease that includes a clause about alterations. Don't make me." "You ever been up here at 3:03 a.m.? His eyes did a small, involuntary thing. Flicked toward the stairs and back. "I sleep at night," he said too quickly. "Patch your wall." I patched the wall. I told myself I wouldn't listen that night. At 3:02, I stood up in the kitchen with the faucet running to mask the moment. At 3:03, the pipe shuddered as if they were listening too. The laugh came. I turned the faucet off and heard the tick begin beneath my bed. 1, 2, 3, pause. It sounded like a finger on glass. My mouth felt dry enough to crack. Something else changed that night. The light. The line of light under my bedroom door dimmed and brightened in an even pulse, as if the TV were down there flickering through the brightness shifts, and the glow somehow bled through concrete. The pulse synced with the tick so precisely that it felt like the building, and whatever was under it, were a single animal, breathing. On day 12, I went looking for a blueprint. Not just the glossy lobby kind, the old ones, the ones you'd have to request from the city. I sat at a public terminal, under fluorescence so bright my eyes watered, and clicked through scans that made the building look like a body flayed into pages. 6th floor, 2 units, 6A and 6B, a roof access stair, mechanical voids labeled with little crosses. 5th floor, 5A, 5B, a janitor's closet, more mechanical spaces. The area directly under my bedroom was a shaded rectangle labeled simply mechanical plenum that should have comforted me. Plenum is a cavity to move air, but this one had measurements that didn't reconcile with the rest of the plan, as if its walls were thicker than the walls around it. Someone had drawn the rectangle wrong, or right, in a way that made the skin of my back tighten. In the margins, a black stamp half cut off by the screen. Renovation 1997. Another beneath it, fainter. Field change. Void maintained. Someone made a change in the field, and then maintained a void. I started to count the days by the laugh. It made me mild at work, jumpy in daylight, and concentrated at 3:02. On the 15th night, the pattern broke. At 3:03, there was no laugh. There was only the tick. 1, 2, 3, pause. 1, 2, 3, pause. I lay perfectly still and counted 50 cycles. On the 51st cycle, the tick sounded once more, and then tapped twice in quick succession. 1, 2, and stopped dead. My apartment felt instantly larger, like someone had exhaled a room's worth of air. The silence pressed on my eardrums. Then a new sound slid up through the floor without a warning. The torn paper rip of a VHS eject, the plasticky hiss of a tape being pulled, and a clock that vibrated the bed legs. A smell followed, so faint I thought I'd invented it. Warm dust, like a TV that has been on too long. I told myself a person shouldn't talk to a hole. I talked to the hole anyway. I went to the patch, put my palm against the paint, and said quietly, "Hello." Something answered with the most human sound I've ever heard in a building. Not words. A small involuntary breath through a nose, close, as if someone on the other side had leaned to the wall at the same time. I slept on the couch again. The next morning, my reflection in the microwave's door blinked a fraction of a second after me, like the refresh rate lag on a cheap monitor. I waved my hand. That reflection waved. There was a heartbeat of delay. I felt rather than saw, like the moment between someone finishing a sentence and you realizing you have nothing to say in return. I stopped bringing it up to the manager. There are only so many times you could sound like the beginning of a horror story in someone else's office. Instead, I started checking the stairwell at night. Each landing has a small wired glass window that looks into the floor's hall. At 3:01 on night 19, I opened the 6th floor stair door, propped it with my shoe, and peered down the square of the shaft to 5. The wire glass on 5 showed its hall, and then something else. A smear of light on the floor under the door that shouldn't have been there. Not from above, from the baseboard. I collected my stupid bravery like spare change, and did the one thing you're mentally yelling at me not to do. I took the fire key from the red box. It was surprisingly easy to open, and let myself onto floor 5. The hall smelled like detergent and old dust. The light stripped under the baseboard, pulsed once and faded. It was the wall under my stack, the one labeled plenum on the plan. The baseboard here was slightly proud, like it had been taken off and put back wrong. I crouched and put my ear to it. The baseboard was warm. "You're going to get me killed," a voice said behind me. I stood so fast my tension tunneled. The manager stood in the hall with his hands up, like he approached a skittish animal. "I told you there are no tenants down here," he said. His voice sounded flat, defeated. "You can't be on 5 after hours. You can't be." "There's a room," I said, "and someone's in it." He shook his head once. "There's a containment," he said carefully, choosing the wrong words on purpose because it was safer than the right one. "This building is old. When you seal something, sometimes it keeps acting like itself. You don't need to open anything." "What was renovated in 97? His eyes flickered toward the stair again. "If you keep drilling," he said, "you're going to hurt yourself." He lowered his voice. "And you might let him hurt you." "Who?" He swallowed. "Whoever is waiting to be you." He walked away without another word. The elevator dinged for him. I didn't follow. That night, I put the borescope back in the drawer and took out the drill. I patched my hole the first time because admitting something existed made it more real. I unpatched it now because pretending it didn't exist made me feel like prey. I put the drill bit to the wall. Plaster dust glittered in the bedside lamplight. I widened the hole carefully, quietly. A carpenter for a body I didn't want to see. The first thing through was the smell. Warm dust. The memory of a carpet heated by an old CRT. I turned the lamp off and let my eyes adjust. In the dark, the hole glowed. Not bright. A soft television blue. The color of a room with a screen on snow. I put my ear over the hole and heard low audio. A man's voice. My timbre. My little swallowed consonants. I slid my face close and whispered, "Hello." My own voice came back from the other side, not in echo time, but with that same uncanny half-second delay, like a bad lip sync. "Hello." "You can't be me," I said. "You can't be me," he said. We both laughed. That was a mistake. The laugh multiplied in the hole and came out thin and papery. The building answered with its own laugh down in its bones, and I knew then exactly what the 303 laughter had been. Rehearsal. I widened the hole with my fingers, crumbling gypsum into soft chunks, and slid the borescope in again for light. The lens caught a slice of couch. There was a man on it, knees up, the posture I sleep in when I can't quite fall. The borescope light hit his eye. It reflected like an animal's for a flash, then narrowed. He raised his hand the way a person does when a doctor tests their vision, and covered his right eye to look at me with his left. I did the same. Two idiots miming. "Why do you have my couch?" I asked. "Why do you have mine?" he asked. "You started the TV." "You did." We spoke over each other, sentences stepping and tripping like two peoples trying to get through a door at once. Underneath the words, the tick started. 1, 2, 3, pause. 1, 2, 3, pause. It wasn't on glass. It was on drywall near the leg of the bed, where a nervous person's finger would naturally land. It was my rhythm. "Do you ever get the feeling," he said, "that you're the upstairs one?" The hole's little blue light pulsed. A shadow passed across his side of the room. For a moment, I saw the layout clearly. It was my layout, with 2 small errors. His lamp leaned away from the wall, as if it had softened in heat, and his TV was an older, deeper thing with a heavy back and a VCR slot. The rest was me. Even the gouge in the stand had propagated into a warp-like wood that had been wet and then dried in a new shape. "Come here," I said. "Come here," he said. We both put on our palms to the drywall at the same time. The wall was cool. Through it felt warmth. The way you can feel someone's hand against a door you both lean on. Heat seeping like a secret. He slid his hand and I mirrored. For a moment, our palms found a place with no stud, and the give under the gypsum felt thin as skin. "I don't think we're supposed to do this," I said. "We already did," he said. "We always do." He bent until I could see his mouth close to the hole. My heart threw itself at my ribs. He whispered something. The building swallowed the consonants. I put my ear to the hole. "Trade," he said. The tick sped. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. A metronome losing its patience. The borescope's light hiccuped like a candle. The drywall around the hole flexed with the soft crackle, as if pressure had changed on the other side. My lamp flickered, not like electricity flickers, but as though the room had blinked. Behind me, the microwave's black door showed a reflection out of phase so obviously that my stomach broke into a cold sweat. My reflection blinked late, then blinked again to catch up. "Move back," I said. My voice sounded like I'd recorded it on a cheap tape and played it too many times. "Move back," he said, obedient, like we were children practicing politeness. I put my fingers into the hole, up to the first knuckle. The paint was chalky. The cavity breathed warm. My fingertips touched something that gave too much, and then not at all, like skin against glass under thick dust. A mirror. My brain tried to name it, and then immediately unnamed it. He laced his fingers between mine through the thin break until our knuckles were staggered. In that dumb, intimate position, I realized I could pull as hard as I wanted, and something would tear before the wall did. 3, he said. We didn't count 1 or 2. The drywall cracked in a line like a mouth being forced open. The patch I'd done earlier bulged and split along my own sloppy seam. I don't remember deciding to put my shoulder to it. I remember the sound of paper tearing and the smell of stale heat, TV dust, the breath of a person who sleeps on a couch too often. The room tilted, not because the building moved, but because something at the edge of me did. I fell forward, half my weight, and met resistance. Not like hitting a wall, like leaning against yourself after a long day and resisting playfully, then not playfully. Fingers dragged my wrist. My knee found the floor on the other side, and the floor gave under it like bread. In the half second where my head and chest fit the new room and my legs were still mine, the temperature difference combed through me. I heard both apartments breathe at once. One with my radiators pop, one with a low fan, and in the overlap there was a sound like tape stretching to the point before it snaps. The lights went out. In the dark, the tick started again. Not from below, from directly behind my head. I don't know how long it was dark. When the light came back, it wasn't mine. It was the wrong color. Too warm, and it came from the wrong place. A television glow that skinned the room in amber. I was on a couch with my knees up, in a posture I recognized from outside myself. The air had that closed electronic smell, like sleepovers at a house with basement TVs. Dust motes stood tall on the beam from the screen. The coffee stain on the rug was not fresh and not old. It looked like every day of its life at once. The borescope's light was a drowned firefly on the floor. From the other side of the wall, I heard a man breathe, the involuntary nose breath of someone who had leaned too close to a door. I heard a hand pat drywall in that rhythm I hate. 1, 2, 3, pause. 1, 2, 3. Hello, he said, voice bright and wary. My mouth said hello back a half second too late. It felt like a movie to which I'd arrived 10 frames behind. Everything that followed has that lag baked into it. The way a memory has a blank you can't fill, no matter how many times you retrace it. I got off the couch. My hands were my hands and not. The stand had the warp. The TV had a VCR mouth with the tape sitting half out like a tongue. On its label, a date was written in a hand that raised the hairs on my forearm. 0303. The eject had some torn paper sound that I've heard at the bed. The tape shivered, then slid in as if convinced. Behind me through the wall, a man said my name with my voice, like a question. Elias. When I answered, the wall answered after me, just a beat too slow, and the building hummed through our bones. I could tell you I tried the door. I could tell you there wasn't one. I could tell you the room is a set that looks exactly like mine, a stage for a show that had been running long past its cancellation. But what's true is smaller and crueler. The worst part of an echo is not when it returns, it's when it anticipates you, when you feel yourself saying the thing it has already heard. Days have elapsed since then, in units that don't match clocks. I mark time by the laugh, which still plays at 3:03 a.m., except it isn't beneath anyone. It's here. It's always here. On the other side, I hear tools, patching. I hear a cautious man tell himself he is not prey. Sometimes he says hello, and I answer. Sometimes he breathes, and I match him. And in the half second between our breaths, I swear I could feel his palm through the paint. Warm, familiar, wrong. The manager doesn't come up here. He doesn't need to. This apartment has a manager all its own, an older kind of supervision. It lets the TV flicker when I try to sleep. It lets the microwave doors show me a man who blinks after I do, and then again to catch up. It lets the tick count without tiring. You can check the records as often as you want. They'll still say there's nothing under 6B. They'll still carry the stamp from 1997, void maintained. You'll still nod and say, air plenum, and feel proud to know the word. You won't notice the other stamp until later, the one too faint unless you tilt the page under light. Field change. Occupancy unknown. I'm writing this because you asked me if I'm the upstairs one. I don't think I am. Last night when I turned out the lamp, the television came on by itself and lit the room the way a room in a story is supposed to light up. A man on the screen looked exactly like me, and he laughed in a sound that was paper and tape. And he looked up, not at the camera, but at me and said, "You can't be me." And I heard someone in the wall breathe, and I realized what we've been doing for weeks, rehearsing, practicing our delay, practicing our mirror, practicing our trade, until the timing was right. They told me there's no apartment below mine. They might be right. Some nights, when the laugh hits, it sounds like I'm the only one downstairs. If you're reading this, you probably just signed the lease for 6B. You'll think the paperwork was thin, that the rent seemed too good for the square footage. You'll tell yourself the building is old, that sound travels. You'll be wrong. Don't drill the floor. Don't pull the baseboard. Don't listen for the laugh. It will find you without your help. There's something underneath the slab that remembers voices. Every time someone listens, it learns a new one. Every time someone opens the wall, it decides who gets to stay. I wrote this so you'll know. So maybe you'll leave before 3:03 a.m. tonight. So maybe you'll never learn what's waiting to rehearse your name. But if you do hear it, if you hear the laugh, and a man whisper your name through the vent, then come downstairs. Please. It's so quiet here. If you made it this far in the video, I just want to say thank you. It really means a lot. This was a completely original story, and honestly, I wasn't even expecting to be the one voicing it, but it just kind of worked out that way. So if you enjoyed it, please leave a like and a comment below. It really helps the video reach more people. And also, if you guys have any suggestions for me and tips, let me know. But thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.